Hello and welcome back to Doctor Who, the Cancelled Years, the series where I showcase my thoughts on what Doctor Who would have been like if it wasn't cancelled in 1989. In this video, we're doing something different. Today, we're doing a retcon. So pay attention, as things are about to change. For a while, I've been considering doing some retcons to this series, as I'm not 100% happy with a lot of my earlier decisions looking back. With season 39 coming up, I figured now would be the perfect time to do it before the next season starts. The following things to be retcons are from seasons 27 to 37. Will this be the only retcon video in the series? Who knows, it all depends on the feature, doesn't it? So without any more delay, let's get started. Season 27 is pretty much the same as it used to be. There's just one change this season, and that would be the story to Elyxian. While the story itself is still Elyxian, it would have a new plot. The TARDIS arrives on the planet Elyxian, as it's low on Artron energy. The planet produces Artron energy, which will refuel the TARDIS over time. The Doctor and Rain go off to explore the planet. They find that there are two species on this planet, the Alex and the Acrons. The two races were once at war with each other, but eventually called peace. They are now neutral to each other, but they don't entirely trust the other. The government of Elyxian is led by a group of Alex monks and the Abbot, who is essentially president of the planet. The Abbot is hungry for power over the universe. He's found a way to make himself immortal. He has a bunch of time beetles captured in his castle. These time beetles produce an elixir which causes immortality, named the Elixir of Elyxian. However, the elixir can only be produced by feeding Acrons to the beetles. The Abbot wishes to make his species almighty and powerful. All he needs is the technology to travel among the stars, and he will become a god of the universe. When the Abbot learns of the Doctor and his TARDIS, he attempts to get the information of the Doctor by any ways necessary. He imprisons, tortures, and even threatens to feed them to the beetles, but the Doctor does nothing. He doesn't break. The Abbot attempts to get the knowledge by force in a mind battle. During the battle, the Doctor is able to keep his mind locked, but he's too weak to fight, and the Abbot ends up destroying his mind. Rain exposes the Abbot's plans to the Alexes and the Acrons. The two races agree that what the Abbot and his government is doing is wrong, and agree to work with each other to overthrow his government and rescue the Doctor. The plan works and the government is overthrown with the help of Rain. The monks are thrown in prison, but because the Abbot is already immortal, he is thrown into a never-ending pit. Rain finds the Doctor dying and takes him back to the TARDIS. All she knows how to do is shut the doors, but needs the Doctor not to die so that they can escape the planet. The Doctor, with the last of his energy, is able to dematerialize the TARDIS before collapsing to the ground. And then the regeneration begins. The regeneration would have been a mix of the 5th and 6th Doctor's regeneration. The Doctor begins imagining the faces of Mel, Ace and Rain, saying the word Doctor over and over. Then a regeneration energy similar to the 6th Doctor's one begins to engulf his face. As this is happening, the shouting from Mel, Ace and Rain begins to become more louder and more violent sounding. Then the regeneration energy begins to fade away and the shouting stops, with the real Rain calling the Doctor's name out in confusion. We'd see the face of the 8th Doctor, and then the episode would go into the end credits. Season 28 is where notable changes begin to occur. Due to Doctor Who being on BBC 2 and having a lower budget than it would on BBC 1, it's unlikely there would have been an episode count increase. So therefore, I've decided there would only be 4 stories in this season, as well as season 29. The 2 stories being dropped from this season are Animal and A School for Glory. Also, a minor change to the title sequence has been made, this being the bit with the Doctor's face and skull. Season 29, like the previous season, has had an episode decrease from 6 to 4. The episodes being dropped from this season are Avatar and Hostage. Also, we have our first new story to the Retcon. Evolution has now been replaced with a new original story named Revolution, still being written by Rona Munro. Revolution would have been a pseudo-historical and an alternative history type of story. It would have been set in an alternative history where the British won the Revolutionary War. The story would have saw the Doctor and Rain arriving in 1892 and finding America to be a very different place to how it should be. They discover that history has gone wrong, and they also find that George III is still alive. The Doctor and Rain soon discover that the King isn't George III, but the Master in disguise. This story would have introduced a new body for the Master. Gone is Anthony Ainley after playing the role for 9 or 10 years. This would be a new stolen body and he would be played by Robert Lindsay. This new incarnation would be a lot more like Roger Delgado than Anthony Ainley and would be a lot more darker. The Master has changed history so that Britain won the Revolutionary War and took the place of George III, conquering the Earth and turning it into a war planet. He's also sped up evolution so that by the year 1892, the world is as advanced as it would be in the 25th century. The Doctor and Rain are forced to go back in time and prevents the Master from changing history. George III is rescued from being killed by the Master and the Master is exposed to the British. He's locked away in a dungeon and history restores itself, with the British losing the Revolutionary War. Season 30 has remained near enough the same, there's just a few minor changes to it. Firstly, the title sequence has had a bit of a revamp, as you'll see here. And secondly, the 8 Doctors has had a bit of a tweak to it. Firstly, Bernice is now joined by Susan, Jamie and Victoria in her bit with the 4th Doctor, as a way of paying respect to the 1st and 2nd Doctors. And secondly, Anthony Ainley's Master is replaced with the Robert Lindsay incarnation. Season 51 has had very little changed about it. The only changes are 1. The Zygon infiltration has been renamed to the Zygon invasion, and 2. Christmas on the Rational Planet has been removed. Season 32 has had a number of changes to it. Firstly, War of the Worlds has been replaced with an original story named The Alien Movement by Kate Orman. It would have been set on Earth in the far future and would have been about aliens on Earth. By this point, mankind has slowly let certain races coexist with them. Then a new president of Earth is elected, who is against alien rights and doesn't wish for aliens to coexist or mate with humans. So all aliens on Earth are either killed or taken to labour camps. The Doctor gets discovered on Earth to be an alien, and he is soon thrown into a labour camp himself. The story would have focused on Bernice and Chris as they fight with the aliens to demand they receive equal rights. It would have saw the 2 of them forming a movement named the Alien Movement and doing all sorts of stuff to give aliens rights on Earth. This involves protests, riots, and breaking out many prisoners from labour camps, including the Doctor. At the end of the story, it's revealed that the president had been manipulating people to hate aliens using technology that controls the thoughts of people. The humans protest the government and stand by the aliens. Together, they're able to overthrow the president, and aliens are allowed to live with humans and even have relationships with them if they so wish. At the end of the story, the Doctor realises that Bernice and Chris have made history on Earth, with the two of them being responsible for man's relationship with the universe. Secondly, an earthly child has been removed. In its place is an old original story from the original ASAT series, Nerve Gas by Paul Cornell. The story would have been set in the South Pole in 1945, not long after the Second World War ended. The TARDIS picks up strange signals coming from the South Pole, so the Doctor travels to it. The story would have saw the Doctor, Bernice and Chris with a Russian expedition squad travelling through a sinking ship looking for nerve gas which was created by the Nazis that can be used as a deadly weapon. When the group eventually find the gas, the leader of the expedition reveals himself to be the Master. The Master reveals that he plans on wiping out the Earth with the nerve gas by attaching it to the missiles in the ship and bombing every major city on Earth. He locks the Doctor, Bernice and Chris in a test chamber and sets gas to pump into the chamber. Meanwhile, he goes off to activate the missiles. Eventually, the Doctor, Bernice and Chris are able to escape in time and go off to stop the Master. He's defeated when the Doctor contacts the Russian military to mark the ship as unsafe and to bomb it down with missiles. The three of them then run about looking for an exit to the ship. When they eventually find a way out, the Doctor goes back in to rescue the Master. However, when the Doctor finds him, he finds that the Master has accidentally let the gas out on himself, which begins to kill him. The Doctor is forced to leave him behind on the ship. As he, Bernice and Chris escape, the missiles hit the ship and it sinks to the bottom of the ocean, presumably killing the Master. Thirdly, Plague of the Witix has been replaced with an original story named Planet of the Nestine by Jim Mortimer. It would have been about the Nestine attempting to turn the people of Earth into plastic by polluting the water of Earth with crystals named plastite. The story would have featured Isaac Summerfield and the Pyramid, as well as Winfred Bambera and Unit. Like with Plague of the Witix, Bernice decides to leave the TARDIS at the end of the story to stay with her father on Earth. And finally, Relative Dimensions has been removed. Season 33 has had notable changes to it, but nothing too drastic. Again, like with Season 30, the titles have had a slight tweak to it, as you'll see here. Story-wise, there's been a fair few changes. Firstly, Power Crisis has been renamed to the more appropriate Blackout. Secondly, the plot for Rebirth and Rule of the World have been slightly tweaked, but the story still works near enough the same. In Rebirth, the Master is still in the Robert Lindsay body, but looks battered, bruised and ill. After the events of Nerve Gas, he was able to escape to his TARDIS, which was on board the sinking ship. He managed to cure most of the nerve gas within him, but suffered massively from it. And the side effect is, if he now attempts to leave the current body he's in, he will die permanently. The only way forward for the Master is to build a DNA machine that can regenerate his body back to its prime. The rest of the story plays out pretty much as it originally did, however the Master's body is fully restored. But then it gets slightly fried, giving him a half crisp look, but still as Robert Lindsay. In Rule of the World, the Master is still in the Lindsay body, however this would be the last story with this incarnation of the Master. The story plays out pretty much as it usually did, with the Master attempting to steal the Doctor's remaining regenerations. When Patricia pushes the Master into the extractor, his body is destroyed and becomes the crispy incarnation again. However, he would still be played by Robert Lindsay, just done up to look like the Jeffrey Beavers Peter Pratt incarnation. Thirdly, Vampire Science has been moved back to season 34. The story will now be replaced with Forest of the Dead by Stephen Moffat. This version of the story is near enough the same as it is in our own universe. The only noteworthy change is that the character of River Song no longer exists in this story. And finally, The Taker of Life is now written by Rona Munro. Season 34 would have 2 new stories, replacing 2 of the old ones. The stories being replaced are The Hunt and The Burning Nebula. Replacing The Hunt is last season's Vampire Science. And replacing The Burning Nebula is a new Mark Platterani story named The Immortality Crown. The story would have saw the Rani turning the people of Mazmiagoria into a military force species, conquering and invading all other planets near Mazmiagoria. The inhabitants of the planet are forced into mines and are forced to look for red gemstones. With all 6 gemstones, the Rani is able to use them to make a bigger gemstone, which is planted into a golden crown, making the Immortality Crown, which grants its wearer immortality. The Rani is defeated when the Doctor helps the rebels and the soldiers the Rani betrays take back the planet and take the Rani down. The crown is destroyed and the Rani is defeated. She is to be locked away for eternity on Mazmiagoria, but the Rani refuses defeat and ends up poisoning herself and refuses to regenerate. The Doctor buries the Rani and then leaves in the TARDIS, with the people of Mazmiagoria planning to make an alliance with the planets they invaded. The episode count has been changed due to Vampire Science replacing The Hunt. Now episode 1 is 2 parts long and time travel is now 1 part long. Time travel has now been renamed to Broken History and is now written by Stephen Moffat. And finally, Beings of War has been renamed to The Rules of War. Season 35 has been skipped as nothing in that season has been retconned. Season 36 has had a fair shake-up. Firstly, Fire and Ice is now written by Mark Gatiss instead of Justin Richards. Secondly, Witchcraft has been changed. While the story would still be Witchcraft, it has a new plot. The story is now set in Elizabethan times. It would have featured the return of the Master like before, who is still played by Derek Jacobi. The Master's new stolen body used to be a scared librarian named Mr. Harrison, who was scared by anything to do with magic. When the Master possessed his body, he became interested in witchcraft and magic, which began to scare the local people. The Doctor and Jean show up and hear rumours of a wizard. At first they just pass it off as natural fear, but then they see blue lightning striking and begin to believe the locals. When they begin to investigate, the Doctor finds the Master and finds out what he's doing. He's attempting to summon a creature known as the Blur, a Gallifreyan myth in hopes that it can make his body Time Lord again. The Master summons the Blur by having lightning strike a mirror, but the Blur ends up being a mindless creature that does nothing but destroy. The Blur is defeated when the Doctor and the Master are forced to team up together and send it back through the mirror. With the Blur gone, the Master escapes in his TARDIS before the Doctor can confront him. Thirdly, the battle for Earth has been replaced with Season 37's The Stones of Venice. And finally, Cracked Time has been massively revamped. The beginning of the story would have played out pretty much identical to how it used to be. The TARDIS is summoned to Gallifrey, Romana confronts the Doctor and Jean about the Web of Time, Jean's to be sent back to 1952 to die, but the Doctor refuses at the last second. However, now here's where things begin to change. The Doctor and Jean attempt to escape Gallifrey, but before they can reach the TARDIS, they spot a giant crack in the sky, seeking out smoke into the universe. After they stop looking at the crack, the Doctor and Jean find that Gallifrey has changed around them. They find that the crack has rewritten history so that the Daleks had successfully invaded Gallifrey, and the planet is now a battlefield. A good chunk of the story now would have saw the Doctor and Jean working with alternative Romanas and High Councils to find a way to fix time from destroying itself. During this, history would have been changing around them with different versions of Gallifrey. They're eventually able to learn how to stop time from being destroyed. The Doctor and Jean must travel through the crack to Never Time, a universe made up of anti-time. They must find a way to close the crack and escape back to our universe before they're stuck in the wrong universe. the Doctor and Jean go off in the TARDIS and travel to Nevertime. In this universe, the TARDIS doesn't operate properly anymore, and crash lands on the only planet in the universe. On the planet, the Doctor and Jean find a primitive village occupied by a tribe of people. The tribe believe the Doctor and Jean to be a threat, so they attack them. The tribe is however stopped when a man wearing Gallifreyan robes walks through the crowds. He gives a sinister look at the Doctor and tells his people to lock him up. Inside their cell, Jean asks the Doctor if he knows who that man is, but the Doctor doesn't. After some time, the man enters their cell and confronts the Doctor, telling him he knows who he is. The man tells the Doctor that his name is Deus, and that he was once a friend of the Doctor a long time ago on Gallifrey. However, one day he was arrested for a crime he didn't commit. He was found guilty on the spot and was banished by the then president to a universe named Nevertime. The president also ordered that he was to be erased from history, so that it'd be as if he never existed. In Nevertime, Deus found that he wasn't the only Time Lord to be sent through. He teamed up with the other Time Lords and took the rank as their leader, swearing that one day, when Nevertime is reopened, they'll go back to their own universe and destroy it. Deus returns to his people as they prepare to enter the universe using the transmat teleport they constructed. The Doctor and Jean are able to break out of their cell and go off to stop Deus, but finds that they've already entered the other universe. They find that they're able to follow them if they're able to fix the TARDIS, which they're able to do eventually, and they return to the universe to stop Deus. Back in their own universe, the Doctor returns to Gallifrey, where he finds it to be in flames and smoke. Deus gives a big speech to his followers on how they're going to destroy Gallifrey once and for all, but his followers are confused. They only wanted to return to the universe to see their family, not destroy it. They all abandon Deus to go find their families, but soon discover that they've been erased from history. Deus runs off, planning something, and the Doctor chases after him. Deus plans to destroy Gallifrey by destroying the Eye of Harmony. The Doctor is able to stop him before he can tamper with the Eye. The two of them end up fighting in the middle of the Panopticon. The Doctor seems to be winning at first, but then Deus pulls a knife out and stabs the Doctor through the heart, causing him to collapse. Before Deus can fully kill the Doctor, he's ambushed by his old followers. They capture him and take him back to the transmat site. They tell him that their lives in this universe are meaningless now, but they still care about their people. Their only meaning in life now is to stop people like Deus from killing them. They take him back to the transmat site and return to Nevertime, where they'll be imprisoned for all eternity. And once they're through to the other side of the crack, they close it from their side. And due to the crack being closed, time is fixed and Jean is able to live, due to her being involved in fixing the web of time. And as well as this, the universe is fixed back to its original state. At the end of the story, the Doctor and Jean make sure everything's alright with Romana and Gallifrey before they depart in the TARDIS. Then on board the TARDIS, the Doctor begins to die. He explains regeneration to Jean and then proceeds to regenerate into his next incarnation. Season 37 has had a fair number of changes to it. Firstly, the titles have had a slight fix-up, including a font change and a bit of a tidy up. Like with the previous two title changes, they're similar to the old ones but have a noticeable difference, as you'll see here. Secondly, with the Stones of Venice now in Season 36, a new story is needed. In its place will be the big finish story, The Holy Terror. Thirdly, Murder Mysteries has been replaced with an original story named Pollution by Justin Richards. It would have been set at a water pumping station and would have been about a race of aliens named the Lichid attempting to take over the Earth by polluting the Earth's water with pieces of themselves. If a human drinks or even touches the water, it'll take over their DNA and turn them into a leechid. Then at some point the Doctor bumps into Sarah Jane, who's also investigating the station. Eventually she learns about the Doctor and teams up with him and Jean. Eventually the leechid are defeated by the Doctor and the Earth is saved from being turned into leechid. At the end of the story, Sarah goes off with the Doctor and Jean in the TARDIS. And finally, Snowblind has been replaced with a new story named Coldland. The story still would have been set in the same place as Snowblind, however the story has been changed. The villain of the story would have been the Ice Warriors, who were attempting to turn the Earth into a new home by rotating the Earth's axis. Eventually the Ice Warriors are defeated by the Doctor and Jean when they re-rotate the Earth's axis back to normal. And that is it, that is the end of this video. In the next video, we're finally returning to Doctor Who for season 39. A new season, a new companion, and brand new stories all coming soon. Until then though, goodbye.